everyone. Happy Monday. I'm going to do my best to get through this episode. It's been crazy in my house. My kids are sick. I've had no sleep, but we'll see how it goes. So we had to switch things up a little bit. We were going to do part 2 of the World Economic Forum's meeting in Davos, but we decided that what's happening at the Texas border is more important, and it's really not getting a lot of media coverage. So we wanted to let everyone know what's going on there. And this is the type of thing that could have huge effects on our country because Governor Greg Abbott is standing up to the Biden administration and holding the line in Texas, not allowing federal agents into a main illegal crossing port of entry. So Texas Governor Greg Abbott called on the National Guard to secure Shelby Park. So this is a very common illegal crossing. It's in Eagle Pass, Texas. And the National Guard is now blocking Border Patrol from gaining access to the area. And they've actually started arresting illegal migrants at this point. So the Department of Homeland Security's General Counsel, Jonathan Meyer, sent a cease and desist letter to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, which Tara, I was like surprised to hear his name because I thought they were trying to get rid of him, but I guess he's still the Texas AG.
He is still there.
And yeah, so this letter, part of the letter reads, quote, "The recent actions by the state of Texas have impeded operations of the Border Patrol. Those actions conflict with the authority and duties of Border Patrol under federal law and are preempted under the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. Texas's actions also improperly seek to regulate the federal government. I am writing to demand that Texas immediately cease and desist any actions taken by the state that block Border Patrol's full access to the U.S.-Mexico border in and around the Shelby Park area." And part of the letter, I guess they had given a deadline. And so like all over social media or TikTok, I should say, that's the only place anyone's talking about it. People are like, or what? Like, what are you going to do, Biden? You know? And so Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton rejected this cease and desist letter, saying, quote, "Because the facts and law side with Texas, the state will continue utilizing its constitutional authority to defend her territory, and I will continue defending those lawful efforts in court," end quote. So it was pretty quiet the first few days of this, but I saw that Governor Abbott's office did end up posting this on their website on January 19th. And it read, "Governor Greg Abbott, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and the Texas National Guard continue to work together to secure the border, stop the smuggling of drugs, weapons, and people into Texas, and prevent, detect, and interdict transnational criminal activity between ports of entry. Since the launch of Operation Lone Star, the multi-agency effort has led to over 496,000 illegal immigrant apprehensions and more than 38,500 criminal arrests, with more than 34,900 felony charges. And in the fight against the fentanyl crisis, Texas law enforcement has seized over 453 million lethal doses of fentanyl during this border mission. That's alarming.
Yeah.
The yeah, the Post goes on to say that Texas also bused over 12,500 migrants to Washington, D.C. since April 2022, over 37,000 to New York City, over 31,000 to Chicago, over 3,000 to Philadelphia, over 15,000 to Denver, and over 1,500 to Los Angeles. Good for them because it's working. So it goes on to say Operation Lone Star continues to fill the dangerous gaps created by the Biden administration's refusal to secure the border. Every individual who's apprehended or arrested and every ounce of drugs seized would have otherwise made their way into communities across Texas and the nation due to President Joe Biden's open border policies. So I guess, like, first of all, good for Texas. Like, I think everyone's cheering for Texas right now. But what I want to know is, like, why now? You know, like, this has been going on for 3 years, and like, all of a sudden, all this stuff's happening between the Border Patrol and the National Guard. And so I don't know. I'm just like, and in my conspiracy brain, I'm like, why now? Why is this taking place at this point in time? What do you
But
think?
it's been taking place over the past 3 years. I mean, Texas has continually tried to enforce the border and continually been blocked by the Biden administration. And the Biden administration has been taking action the entire time by literally not taking action. And even with Arizona, it's the same thing. They blocked efforts by Arizona to protect the border. And what pisses me off is like every time Biden is asked about his plans for border security, all he ever says is he's just waiting for the money. Even this past Saturday, he was asked by Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich if he believes the border is secure. And here's what Biden said. He said, quote, "No, it's not. I haven't believed it for the last 10 years. And I've said it for the last 10 years. Give me the money," end quote. Okay, so you've been asking for money to secure the border for 10 years, even though you've only been in office for 3 years, you senile fuck, right? Because that's the problem. You don't have enough money.
Well, yeah, and then if it really is that he doesn't have enough money, then why are they like literally trying to stop the National Guard? If the National Guard
Right.
is there and it's coming out of Texas's budget, then why are you like going to such great lengths to stop it? Because he wants
Exactly.
the open border.
Exactly. And it's like they've already shown they'll send billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. They'll spend millions on DEI initiatives and electric vehicle charging stations and LGBTQIA XYZ grants, but there's no money to secure the border. That's bullshit. This is yet another move by the Biden administration to show the world and the American citizens that they don't give a fuck about national security or the humanitarian crisis that's taking place in Texas and spreading throughout the country. And it fucking infuriates me that they continually try to turn shit around and blame it on Texas. Listen to this statement from the White House in response to Abbott securing the park. I said, quote, "Governor Abbott continues his extreme political stunts that not only seem to demonize and dehumanize people, but that also make it harder and more dangerous for Border Patrol to do their jobs. Whether it's leaving migrants on the side of the road in the dead of winter, installing razor wire to make Border Patrol's job more dangerous, promoting extreme and unconstitutional laws like SB 4, or his latest actions in Eagle Pass. Governor Abbott has repeatedly proven that he is not interested in solutions and only seeks to politicize the border," end quote. Stephanie, I feel like I'm living in the fucking twilight zone with this shit. Governor Abbott isn't interested in solutions. He's the only one doing anything about the border. And every time he takes action, the Biden administration files a lawsuit. Like
Yeah, they always want
Texas.
to go after Abbott. Just like in when he sends buses to New York, they'll complain about him saying he's politicizing the situation, but they're not complaining about the plane loads of people nonstop that Biden's sending to New York. So it's like, why is it?
Exactly.
It's just like there's always this hypocrisy, and it's so infuriating.
Yeah, Texas isn't creating the border crisis. The Biden administration and Congress are creating the border crisis. The Department of Homeland Security and the State Department and the DOJ are creating the border crisis. It is literally the federal government's responsibility to enforce immigration laws. They're the ones that are supposed to be providing for national security by enforcing our country's borders. But we all know the Biden administration is compromised and corrupt. So are all the three-letter agencies and at least half of Congress. And instead of putting America first, what do? They all point fingers at each other because we have a federal government composed of fucking crooked and evil elites who take zero accountability, and they are all active participants in ruining our country. And I'm also sick of states like cities and states, New York City, Chicago, they're all complaining how it's cruel politics and it's inhumane that Texas is sending migrants to their states. They can't sustain the incoming floods of people. It's costing them millions of dollars to house migrants. It's destabilizing their cities. Like, what the fuck do these people think it's doing to Texas? What are we supposed to do with the millions of people illegally flooding across the border in Texas? You got the left consistently saying that Abbott's pulling political stunts by busing migrants to blue cities and blue states. But if he doesn't take action, who will? It's all good until migrants show up on your doorstep, right? New York, Chicago, DC, all you other blue cities who are totally in support of an open border. You were all about it until Abbott started busing migrants to your communities. And then suddenly it's a different story. And it's like, oh no, we can't have that in our city. And these mayors and governors, they throw their tantrums like little children and place the blame on the only state that's trying to stop the problem. And instead of taking responsibility for national security and taking steps to ensure the safety of American citizens, the Biden administration just continually says Texas is to blame. And they file some kind of lawsuit every time Abbott tries to secure the border. I'm sorry, but fuck that. Operation Lone Star has cost the state of Texas and its residents over $4 billion. Border towns and cities in Texas have been completely destroyed. Family ranches and farms have been trashed. People have been killed, both residents of Texas and migrants. And the problem continues to get progressively worse. As the governor of Texas, I believe Abbott has a duty to the tax-paying residents of Texas to secure our state's border. And the Biden administration has the responsibility to do the same for the country from a federal level. And as a Texas resident, I think what the Biden administration is doing, or more accurately, not doing, is absolutely disgusting. And I don't care if you want to call Abbott's efforts a political stunt, because at least he's doing something. And as an American in general, you should be speaking out too, because Biden's open border policies are destroying our country and our national security. I have no shame at all in saying that I support an America First agenda, because that's what we all should be doing as Americans. And if you don't like it, go live in another country.
Damn, Tara, mic drop. Mic drop. I love when you do your rants. And you know what? I want to save this because every time I'm on TikTok and I see someone talking about how there's like no border crisis or some of the crazy shit people say, I'm going to send this video to them because that was epic. And I think that everyone listening 100% agrees with that. Like, this has just gotten so out of control. And what drives me crazy is that, again, like the media and the Biden administration will take something that is so obvious and so in our face and affecting every community in the United States, and they will try and twist and turn it and gaslight us. So I want to throw in a clip because I came across this last night and it just pissed me off, but it's a perfect example of them doing this. So this is Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham on Meet the Press. Now, I personally can't stand Lindsey Graham, but I will say he totally called out this interviewer that was, again, trying to change the narrative on the border crisis. And he actually had a really good response. So let me play the clip for you.
New Hampshire, he was talking about the need to keep immigrants out of this country. Here's what he said. I'll get your response.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about, but all over the world. They're coming into our country from Africa, from Asia, all over the world.
The Biden campaign has accused former President Trump of, quote, parroting Adolf Hitler. What is your reaction? Are the president's comments representative of how you and other Republicans feel?
76% of the American people, not Donald Trump, believe the border is broken. They're worried about fentanyl coming over, killing their kids.
What about his language, Senator? Just that language, that poisoning the blood.
You know, I'm worried about an outcome. He is right to want. He had the border secured, the lowest in 40 years in December of 2020. To the Biden administration, you're talking about Donald Trump's language, as you said on the sidelines, and allowed the country to be invaded. 172 people on the terrorist watch list have come on your watch. Fentanyl is killing more Americans than any time in history.
Just on the language, though, I want to get your response. You have endorsed former President Trump. Are you comfortable with him using words like that?
You know, we're talking about language. I could care less what language people use as long as we get it right. I believe in legal immigration. I have no animosity toward people trying to come to our country. I have animosity against terrorists and against drug dealers, but I understand why people want to come to America. But we have chaos and we need to create order. If you think you're going to win the debate on illegal immigration by picking a line out of the Trump speech, most Americans understand the game has to change, that we're under threat, that we're going to get attacked, that our border has completely been obliterated. So if you're talking about the language Trump uses rather than trying to fix it, that's a losing strategy for the Biden administration.
Do you think he would appeal to more people, though, if he chose different words on that argument?
You know, I think the president has a way of talking sometimes I disagree with, but he actually delivered on the border. People are looking for results. If the only thing you want to talk about on immigration is the way Donald Trump talks, you're missing a lot.
Just finally, is it the position of the Republican Party that African and Asian immigrants are poisoning the blood of the people in this country?
No, it's the position of the Republican Party that we've lost control of the border, that terrorists are coming, that there's never been a higher threat to the United States from a terrorist attack from a broken border. But immigrants, people coming to America, we are many people coming to be one. We've lost control of our border. There are people coming here who are selling drugs. There are people coming here raping and murder, and there are people coming here trying to have a better life. The terrorists are coming here to kill us. After October the 7th, how easy is it to get into our country through a broken border and kill a bunch of us? To my Democratic colleagues.
Okay, so I thought he handled that well because I would have been like, bitch, shut up about the damn language.
Right.
I mean, how many times can you ask about the freaking language?
I am so over all of these reporters trying to spin the narrative constantly and ask the same question over and over and over and over, trying to get a different response. Like, how do you live with yourselves? I understand, like, the elites, they're all corrupt. I mean, obviously, so is our media. But how do these people fucking live with themselves? I just don't understand.
I know. I always wonder, like, when they're not on camera, like, do they go home and tell their spouse, like, oh my God, I had to lie like all day? And there's just no respect either. Like the way
No.
she talks to him, it's like so just like, ugh, it's so cringy. And it's like the whole thing with language. It's just like the whole freaking like, what are your pronouns? Use the right
Mhm.
pronouns. I mean, they get caught up on these stupid phrases. And I thought he made a great point because he's saying, you know, if you're trying to win illegal immigration based on the language that Trump uses, it's a losing strategy. But that sums up the Biden administration and the mainstream media because they don't have the action to back up their
Right.
language. Trump does. Like, you could disagree with all the shit he says, honestly, but we saw what happened with 4 years of Trump. And like Lindsey Graham said, it was the most secure border we had in 40 years. So, I mean, whatever, like they can keep trying to twist and turn the story and focus on dumb shit, like the one phrase Trump said at a rally. But the fact of the matter is 76% of Americans agree that the border is out of control.
Yeah, and the Biden administration just continues to try and spin the narrative and tell flat out lies. Like this whole situation with Shelby Park. When the Texas Military Department took over the park a week ago, there was an incident where a woman and 2 children drowned trying to cross into the states. And the DHS blamed Texas, and they said that the TMD, the Texas Military Department, that they physically barred Border Patrol agents from trying to rescue these drowning migrants. So the DOJ sent in a supplemental filing on Friday night with this case and said, quote, Texas's new actions since the government's filing demonstrate an escalation of the state's measures to block Border Patrol's ability to patrol or even surveil the border and be in a position to respond to emergencies, end quote. But it turns out the DHS totally lied about the details and the timeline. And by the time Border Patrol requested access to Shelby Park, the drownings had already happened and Mexican authorities were already recovering the bodies. So on January 16th, Fox News correspondent Bill Malugin posted on X, quote, the Biden admin once again pushed a false narrative at the border, now refuted by their own DOJ, end quote. So basically, the White House claimed that on Friday night, this woman and her 2 children drowned near Eagle Pass and that Texas officials blocked Border Patrol from attempting to provide emergency assistance. And then the DOJ filing showed that the migrants drowned at 8 p.m. and Border Patrol didn't even inform Texas about the situation until an hour later at 9 p.m. So Malugin stated, quote, this, like the horseback patrol, quote, whipping claims took off as a false narrative, generating headlines that claimed Texas blocked a federal rescue effort, leading to the drowning of 3 migrants. The DOJ now confirms those migrants had been deceased for an hour before Texas was even alerted about it, end quote. So once again, it's more bullshit and twisting the narrative and lies from the Biden admin.
Yeah. And, how many people have drowned in that river because they're trying to cross illegally? Had we had a secure border, they would be going through legal crossings where that wouldn't have happened. So it's like they pick out this one incident and it is horrible and it is sad and it is a tragedy. But people wouldn't be crossing there if we weren't inviting them over with these open borders. And they're not the first people to drown. There's lots of children, especially, that have drowned in that river. So them trying to put this on Abbott is just bullshit.
Yeah, and to say that Texas is purposely blocking the Border Patrol from surveilling and responding to emergencies is also bullshit, because Border Patrol has been completely ineffective in securing the border. Why? Not because they don't want to do their jobs, but because the Biden admin won't let them. It's like I said before, if Texas doesn't take action, who the fuck will? And it's like, there's also proof that Border Patrol is in support of what Abbott is doing. The Border Patrol union is backing him. They're saying he's helping Border Patrol operations, not hurting them. According to Fox News, National Border Patrol Counsel Brandon Judd recently put out a statement saying, quote, his seizing of Shelby Park allows our agents to deploy to troubled spots that experience high numbers of gotaways. Governor Abbott's actions should be seen as a force multiplier, end quote. And now I want to take a look, too, at what's going on with another one of Abbott's efforts at border security that's been cock-blocked by the Biden admin, because we talked about this when it happened last July. Abbott installed a buoy, however you say that, buoy barrier that spans this 1,000-foot distance across the Rio Grande River near Eagle Pass. And it's this whole buoy system to deter migrant crossings. And what's the first thing the Biden admin did? The DOJ filed a lawsuit against Texas. They said it violated federal law because it's blocking a public waterway, and this is in opposition to the Rivers and Harbors Act because it's navigable water of the United States. So in September of last year, a federal district judge sided with the DOJ, ruled that Texas had to remove the buoy system, and then the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the ruling last month. But Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a petition for a rehearing. And surprisingly, last Wednesday, the Fifth Circuit voted to temporarily reverse their decision and rehear the case in May. So now this, I don't know why I can't say the word buoy today.
Buoy. I know, it is a weird word.
Buoy.
Normally, I'm the one that can't do words.
Oh, no. I think if we put us in competition, I think people would notice that I screw up words way more than you do. But buoy. They get to keep the system in place while the litigation is ongoing.
Yeah, well, like Ken Paxton was saying in his rejection letter to the cease and desist letter, they have the law on their side. And even the leftist slate.com, they put out an article saying, quote, Abbott has received key assistance from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, which cleared the way for him to obstruct federal border enforcement. If the Supreme Court does not reverse the Fifth Circuit very soon, there's a real possibility that Abbott's partisan stunt will spiral into an open battle between the state and federal governments, end quote. Okay, first of all, this is a bipartisan, both the left and the right at this point agree that the border's out of control. I mean, Democrats are on board with this finally. But I think it's funny because they try to build this case and again twist the narrative, but they flat out show that the law is on their side. So
Right.
it's your strategy is not winning once again, mainstream media. But it does bring up a good point. Do you think that this will be the thing that does lead us into some type of a civil war?
I think it definitely has the potential to, especially when the first big terrorist attack on U.S. soil since 9/11 happens. And it happens because of Biden's open border policies that have allowed untold numbers of terrorists and extremists into our country. And people are sick of it. Like you mentioned earlier, 76% of Americans agree our border's out of control. And there was a recent USA Today Suffolk poll that said more than half of Americans support the idea of sending troops to the southern border and ordering mass deportation of illegal migrants, more than half of Americans. So we already have sheriffs from other states that have been loaning deputies to Texas so they can help patrol border counties. Governors of 14 other states, including Arkansas, Florida, Iowa, Idaho, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming, they've all sent personnel and resources to Texas, or they've deployed their own National Guard troops there. Why? Because this isn't a Texas problem. This is an America problem. It's a fucking national crisis. And at some point, it's going to come to a head.
I am so glad that you found that because it was driving me crazy. Like all over TikTok, people were commenting on our posts and they were saying like, it's now up to 25 states that are doing this, that are sending resources. I couldn't find anything on it because again, like the mainstream media, they don't want to report on that. They don't want people to know that all of these states are on board supporting Texas. They're trying to hide it.
I found this on the Operation Lone Star website for the state of Texas, and that was updated in August of last year. So maybe the people on TikTok are right, and it is up to 25 states because the article that I pulled it from was back in August.
Well, I mean, I couldn't find like anything on normal news about this. But again, like I think that they're really going out of their way to try to like hide this situation because it is so absurd. And most Americans absolutely agree and, want to help Texas. And even on like our TikTok posts, there were people from Canada, from France, from all other countries. And they were like, we wish we could help because this is crazy. So it's like Texas is totally in the right here. And it's interesting because it's an election year. And like if they keep trying to spin this narrative and focus on the border, like the left, they're gonna lose miserably. Like that is an issue that they should be avoiding because there's nothing they're doing that is good. And I know we've talked about this before, but like in terms of this being something that could lead to a civil war, like I am leery of that too, because again, like I think that would be great for the Biden administration because it would mean that they could declare martial law and then no elections would happen, just like what's happening in Ukraine. And they would have full authority at that point to go after MAGA supporters or the South or conservatives or anyone that they, could say are part of this like uprising. So it's like, I think so many people are rooting for that at this point, but also I think it would be playing right into what they want and how they would gain control of the election and the people and like destroy Trump. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my take.
People need to remember or realize that it's not an accident that we have an open border. This isn't, a crisis that came up that, nobody has control over. There's a very nefarious purpose behind every move that the Biden administration makes, and their border policies are no exception. This is purposeful and intentional, and you can absolutely bet they're going to bank on using this in some capacity as we get closer to the elections.
Yeah, totally agree. So we're obviously going to be watching this very closely because, Texas is holding the line. They're not caving in to this cease and desist letter. So we'll see if anything comes of that, but good for them, good for Abbott. And I'm just loving that this is like showing everyone what's really happening with the Biden administration. And I think from when Biden started to now, so many people have changed their stance on this and they're just seeing the real effects of having an open border. And it's scary. It is not something that any country wants. When you have an open border, you're no longer a country. So we'll keep everyone updated on this. Thanks for tuning in and we'll see you next time.